In the summer of 1992, the city of Chicago was in crisis. The Chicago police reported 936 murders, a record high. Most of the victims in 1992 were black males caught up in violence between street gangs. It was during this epidemic of violence that a small group of African American men began to breathe hope into their community. They realized that if mature black leaders personally invested in the lives of young black men, they could begin to make a positive impact. The result was a camp for boys called SIMBA, Safe in My Brother's Arms. The 2-week summer rite of passage was fueled by a mentoring program that instilled spirituality, the centrality of community, harmony with nature, personal centeredness, and a reverence for ancestors and survival. SIMBA then expanded to include young African American girls with SIMSA, Safe in My Sister's Arms. When organizers, both men and women, recognized that children were thirsty for spiritual restoration, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, a mainline Christian denomination with church-wide offices in Chicago, partnered with SIMBA to start an aftercare program that built on the mentoring process started at SIMBA Camp. By June 1995, the aftercare program had organically developed into a worshiping community called Shekinah Chapel.
Thank you.
My name is Jason Williams. I am currently a synodically authorized minister, what they call a SAM here at Shekinah Chapel. Along with that, I am a full-time worker at Jewel Warehouse, and so I'm bivocational, as well as leading Shekinah Chapel with the with the elevation of our awesome Bishop Yehiel Curry. So it's been quite a ride, but man, up for the challenge and grateful to be a part of this journey. It hasn't been easy, but I just love the mission. I love what we stand for. I love the energy in the house.
The uniqueness of this story is that an idea was discussed in the early 90s after riots in LA. And church-wide leaders was just dreaming. And one of the many dreams was a camp.
In 1992, the word on the street was African-American males between 18 and 22 was an endangered species. And so they called a meeting to organize what can we do, and let's pursue this camp concept. So I was drafted by Wyvetta Bullock to come in the room and be a part of this.
We're gonna go swimming, hiking. I'm going to Disneyland!
We just felt like we were losing boys, even boys in the church. And so there was lots of conversations at church-wide among African-American staff, what could we do? And then had some conversations about how we could get our children involved in our ELCA camps. Out of those conversations, SIMBA was born.
If only providing for them 2 weeks of a safe place. We've ministered to some part in them that desired and yearned for ministry. And that's how you have to understand SIMBA. It's a ministry. And it has to be seen in that kind, not a program. It's not a 2-week quick fix. Everything is perfect after 2 weeks. It's a ministry. And if you're involved in ministry, you know that as the person you're ministering to grows, the ministry needs change. And you have to adjust and meet those needs. And that's what SIMBA is.
My journey toward participating in SIMBA and subsequently giving blessing and support for Shekinah really begins with my first call as a pastor in Baltimore, Maryland. And so I began to develop what became a curriculum that used Bible stories and engaged in conversations where justice was front and center.
So it started off with a camp. Sean McMillan was the charismatic figure that was used to help motivate the kids. And then the recognition was initially to do a worship service that Sean was going to lead, but Sean was not an ordained minister at that particular time. but they started a kind of a ministry, and they worshiped on Saturday nights for about an hour or so. It was not traditional form.
I told my husband that it could not possibly be a real church because real churches do not meet on Saturdays at 6 p.m.
It just started as a group of young men and young women, youth kind of focus in doing ministry.
As SIMBA and SIMSA grew, the desire for a regular worshiping community also grew.
I had a conversation with our founding pastor, Sean McMillan. You know, I remember asking him, how are we going to name it, you know? And he said, I already got the name. It's called Shekinah, and it means God's in the midst.
Church-wide leaders was just dreaming that young men and older men within the church, within this predominantly white institution, would begin the mentoring process of identifying future leaders. Well, somehow, because Churchwide is in Chicago, it just got kind of anchored in Chicago. And after a series of transitions, there was still this camp 2-3 years later that was operating, and the kids in Chicago outside of camp weren't really doing anything. So through our church organization process, we learned that synodically authorized worshiping communities was a way to start organizing around this camp a worship service, which is how Shekinah Chapel really was birthed.
Shekinah Chapel is one of the great success stories of the Metropolitan Chicago Synod since the beginning of the ELCA. We've had difficulty establishing new ministries that have really thrived. And so Shekinah Chapel is a great witness to the continued hope and vitality of this community of Riverdale, as well as the continued hope and vitality of the whole church. I think that actually this paradigm is much closer to what was going on in the Reformation period. Because in the Reformation period, where you had a problem of the Reformation churches not being able to get priests to come and serve them, they were put in a position historically and culturally where they had to raise up leaders from within.
The interesting things about Reformation is no one realizes that they're part of a Reformation. For us, we were just doing ministry, and there was an opportunity to lead. There was an opportunity for our children. And so we were just doing what we do. And for all we knew, this Lutheran movement was a black movement. We were part of a reforming that we didn't necessarily sign up for or didn't realize. It was just happening. So we thought all Lutheran contexts were operating the way we were.
It actually, the idea began at my kitchen table. Yeah, over what, now 25 years. Gaylord Thomas, Romanita Henderson, my husband and myself were sitting at our kitchen table talking about this kind of ministry. In fact, we had hoped that it would begin at Bethel Lutheran Church on the west side. It just wasn't working out. So we talked to Pastor Booker Vance about having it start on the south side with St. Stephen's Lutheran Church. And it was a vision for inviting new, young adults, people who would not come to our regular 11 o'clock services.
When I first walked into St. Stephen's Lutheran Church, 85th, right off of Cottage Grove, one of the first things I identified with this young preacher who was talking about my childhood, who was talking about the pains I experienced growing up on the south side of Chicago. He was affirming the deaths in my life. He was affirming the goals and aspirations that I had. And so I later learned that this preacher, Sean McMillan, was also a student at seminary. I didn't understand all of that at the time. I just knew that there he was preaching this message. And he was also involved in the SIMBA program at the time. And so all of those worlds started coming together.
And when I heard Sean preached, I thought, oh my goodness, this man is good. He's amazing. He knows the word, and he can, motivate you to feel better about yourself if you're feeling in a dump, and whatever. He made me feel really, really good.
It was just, a breath of fresh air to see that we're young, we're vibrant, we're, worshiping together and praising the Lord, and it was awesome.
The church was small at that time in number. Everybody was extremely friendly. The church was alive. There was so much joy in the worship and in the preaching. Shekinah dealt with our culture. They had libations, they had the Harambe circle, they had various things that had to do with our culture, plus they were, I don't know how to put it, they were very interested in young men and men in growing in the church.
I would say for the first year, it was just boys. And then eventually, girls started to come. I mean, they would hang outside and, we'd say, oh, this is just for the boys, or, we're just focusing on the boys. But they were there, and they were hungry. And then out of that, leadership started to develop, young people. And I would say that we stayed pretty close to what that vision was that we had for these young people, that it would be a place for them to come to see God, to experience God. And out of all of that, in all of those conversations, the word Shekinah just kept showing up. The place where God dwells.
Shekinah Chapel was already doing an important mission in this local community. But when the ministry chose and worked toward becoming an official congregation of the ELCA, they continued their identity as a local community ministry, but that was integrated into a larger picture of what the church is about everywhere in the world.
Mic check.
The Shekinah Chapel story is filled with ups and downs. After making an intentional decision to move Shekinah from its initial home at St. Stephen's Lutheran Church on Chicago's south side to nearby Riverdale, Illinois, Pastor Sean McMillan left the congregation. The loss of a charismatic leader like McMillan could have signaled the end of Shekinah Chapel, but the congregation's commitment to developing leadership from within led them to elevate one of their own, Yehiel Curry.
The way I started leading at Shekinah wasn't common. There was a disruption in ministry, and the work that we had spent a lot of years building was all gone overnight. There were about 15 of us who said, Shekinah's not dead. And that's when they asked me to lead. From the day I said yes, I started investing in those other leaders who had some of the same gifts I had, if not better. I think baked in the cake of the Shekinah Chapel movement is youth at the center. We've raised far more money to send kids to camp and on mission trips than we ever did to pay someone's salary.
Building on its foundational principles of youth and community outreach, Shekinah Chapel continued to invest in a broad range of ministries in the community and beyond.
MILA, the Multicultural Leadership Academy, is a way for us to blend the skills and the wisdom that we've learned over 23 years to tell a different population about living in a multicultural world.
I want us to start thinking about some of those facts in the quizzes that startled you about race and culture. We dreamed of an academy where different groups of people from various cultures could come together and have an opportunity to grow and learn together, where we could just build young adult leaders that we could then start dispatching throughout the world. What would it look like if it was a camp for multiple groups with leaders who were experts in certain areas and fields, and bring them together and produce a product that we could be proud of to say that these youth leaders understand how to value their culture and walk alongside another culture.
There are systems at play, not just stereotypes.
My name is Sunita Mortha, and so it's a really exciting conversation that is happening here. It's basically saying where are spaces where young people can be brought together from different diverse cultures and backgrounds, given a space to have a conversation about their story, where they're coming from, how are they understanding their story, their identity in God, and how can they be better equipped as leaders.
Mila is a camp that encourages diversity and that encourages understanding of other cultures. It stands for Multicultural Youth Leadership Academy, and it does exactly that. It teaches multicultural youth how to be leaders and how to lead with one another rather than trying to compete.
There are different ways to lead. You can lead from the top, from the front. I think in Shekinah, we've always led from the middle. And what that means, the youth have always been at the center, in the middle. And it has just been our goal to always develop the next generation, to always have an apprentice.
We are not just here to receive, but we are also part of the gospel, and we are living our gospel out loud, and we are serving in Riverdale community, and we are stepping this community, and we are here to serve.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Sister Noreen Stevens, and I serve as the directing deaconess of the deaconess community of the ELCA. Shekinah Chapel is having their food distribution, which is a monthly distribution of fresh produce. It's an abundance of food, and the gift is that it's fresh produce.
The deaconess community is here supporting Shekinah Chapel and Rescue, Release, Restore because they're a mission support partner with our community. We give them a mission grant every year for a couple of years, and it's important to participate in partnership with those who we live and work beside. This area is in what's considered a food desert, and a food desert is where there's not access to fresh produce or readily available groceries within driving distance or walking distance of where people live. And so this is an important gift to be able to share with the community so that they have access to fresh food that can be nourishing for these people.
My name is Heather Haynes. Shekinah Chapel is a beacon of hope in the community of Riverdale, which is known as a complete food desert. So when we have our produce mobile and bring the food to the community, it's a saving grace. The Greater Chicago Food Depository drops off 10,000 pounds of produce, and we distribute it out to the community. Our biggest goal is to train up leaders, and youth is the most important part of our ministry. And so I don't think there's an end. As long as we have children, we will continue to grow.
When you think about how authenticity can get lost in a world so entrenched in facades, Shekinah still is a place that thrives off authenticity and touching real hearts and catering to real people.
My name is Joyce Lipscomb. I'm here today for the low income to pick up free vegetables such as fruit, cabbage, apples, pineapples, cucumbers. It's a blessing to get this stuff from the church that they pass it out, and I'm grateful to be able to get it.
We out here every fourth Wednesday morning serving the people out of love for the neighborhood and those of them in need.
My name is Mabel Hughes. I come early because it be so many people here, and by the time I get here, the best part of the food is gone.
I want to tell the world, if you're not able, come on down to Riverdale and be blessed.
It means the world to our community, not only to the village of Riverdale and Shekinah Chapel, but also to the youth that participate in the SIMBA programs.
This neighborhood needs a lot of support, and this is just where we were called to be. Shekinah is one of those places, no matter where it is, I think it's still going to have the same mission, and I think it's still it's going to have a purpose wherever it is, I believe.
Blessed are you who weep now.
In 2019, Shekinah Chapel experienced another major transition when Pastor Yehiel Curry was elected by the Metropolitan Chicago Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America to become their next bishop. The election meant that Shekinah had to look once again within their own ranks for leadership.
So, we've had
tons of members come and go, for various reasons. But, in each time we transition, when we transition from Sean to, Yehiel, we definitely lost some members in that transition. Transitioning now from Yehiel to Jason, we've lost some members in that transition. But the beauty of Shekinah is the worship experience is so unique. You don't get that from anywhere else, And a lot of our members, well, I can't say a lot, I don't know the percentage, but some of our members grew up in churches as well, and coming to Shekinah to hear and see young kids singing, we have a youth service every 5th Sunday, so you get kids preaching. The variety of different ways we display on how we worship Christ. If we're miming, if we're dancing, if we're singing, if we're running around the church, if we're hugging on one another, that is just infectious,
But see, here's the thing. They made it relatable to us. So even if we couldn't relate to what it is that they were listening to, what it is that they were doing, they allowed us the opportunity to create the Holy Hip Hop service for us. And so we brought that flavor. We brought the things that we were passionate about with the Holy Hip Hop service. We invited other young people to come out from the community to rap. And we did a rap cipher. But it was still all in the name of God, all in the name of worship. And I think that's what's important. You have to meet people where they at.
My favorite thing about Shekinah is how they allow kids or youth to do their own little praise, which is singing and dancing. I really like that, and I like how they allow us to do the things that the adults are able to do.
A tragedy to fail, like a crucifixion nail, gather strength with the will to prevail. Identify hell, the places it dwells, gather strength with the will to prevail.
I wasn't a poet prior to being a part of this ministry. I was writing out of despair. I basically want to say my heart was broke or whatever, and that's how I dealt with it. Not knowing that it was going to eventually, that I'd be doing poetry, at church.
An enduring mission statement at Shekinah Chapel is to bring them in, train them up, and ship them out. It's also a model for the future.
Being at a church that was so open to children and helpful for children is how I got the opportunity to be a parent to a child. To be able to make a difference in a child's life who needs a parent has been the best thing I've ever done with myself. So,
even during this pandemic, just yesterday, we had a 24-hour prayer ministry. 24 hours on the line, standing before the grace of God, crying out for Him for protection and for deliverance and for peace and for hope.
I'm hopeful when I look at our Makungas that have come full circle, our homegrown Makungas. When I look at my own 18-year-old daughter that has been in it since she was 6. I'm very hopeful when I look at what those young women are producing in the universe and what they produce in the other young women that are coming behind them and how they feel a responsibility to reach back and to pull up those younger Simpsons that are coming behind them. I'm beyond hopeful.
The beauty of Shekinah Chapel and the legacy that has been established is that although Yehiel has moved on to greener pastures, as they say, the way in which he ensured that the individuals who were ministers, etc., were under his tutelage, right? He did an awesome job of providing an opportunity for the ministers to step in.
Bring them in, train them up, and ship them out. I'm definitely a testimony to our mission here in Shekinah.
It's coming when you're young, having the opportunity to explore your gifts, being nurtured in those gifts, being given the space to do that and to grow and then to go out and to move on. And that's even evident in my own case.
When we were sitting at our kitchen table, it's like, who knew? decades later, how God's Spirit would still be touching lives and moving and changing, and people bringing their own passion and vision to go beyond what we imagine.
What a good leader is when the place can go on where they're leading when they're gone, and when you train people up, right? So you train them up and ship them out to do what it is they are destined to do and what is in their purpose for their life.
Shekinah is a witness to being a community of grace because they are unapologetically who they are. They have their style, they have their identity, they have their place in the world, and they live in the complete trust and confidence that God has embraced them completely just that way.